it's connecting to the cloud server, and it's recording now. So yeah, my name is Dinsmore-Tuli, and I'm here on behalf of the Yoga Nidra Network. Delighted to introduce you to Jennifer Dumpert. Is that how I say your name properly?
Beautifully,
yeah, Dumpert, Jennifer Dumpert, talking to me from San Francisco. It's very late at night there in California, about midnight, and I'm in the west of Ireland, and it's quite early in the morning. So we decided we'd meet in the in the middle of the time. And Jennifer is the author of an amazing book called Liminal Dreaming. And I believe all Yoga Nidra practitioners would do well to consult this book, because Jennifer has some wonderful techniques to share that really liberate the practice of Yoga Nidra. Jennifer, would you like to say any more in introduction for yourself?
That's quite lovely. Thank you.
That's good. And I met Jennifer when we were in her state in California, and we were running a total Yoga Nidra teacher training course, which Jennifer attended, having done quite a lot of different trainings in Yoga Nidra, I have to say. So that's how I met Jennifer a couple of years back. So I wanted to kick off by simply asking you, could you describe liminal dreaming? Like, what is it and how do you do it?
So, okay, great. Yeah, that's a great place to start. So liminal dreaming is my phrase for together hypnagogia and hypnopompia. So hypnagogia is the dream space you move through as you're falling asleep. Liminal is from the Latin limen, like doorway or limit, and it means neither and both. So liminal dream states are you're both awake and you're asleep simultaneously. So hypnagogia is when you're falling asleep, and that's when your arm jerks, your leg jerks, that kind of hallucinatory, maybe you see faces turning toward you, or when you're fighting to stay awake, you get into that hallucinatory dream state. And then its twin, as you're waking up, is hypnopompia. And that is that beautiful, drifty, well, for me, beautiful, certainly, beautiful, drifty, you feel you're lying, you've been asleep for a while, maybe you feel like you're awake and you've begun to think, and then you realize that your thinking has moved into dream space, that also the dreams you get napping, but you do have conscious waking mind, even though you're in dream space.
Yeah, thank you. And your technique of liminal dreaming, can you give us some examples of how it works? So it enables people to inhabit this space of both of those together, of hypnagogia and hypnopompia. So it's like falling asleep and waking up, but at the same time.
Yeah, so, yeah, no, it's great. I mean, everybody is a natural liminal dreamer, right? So we go through 7 or 8 EEG states, pretty much every 24 hours. And one of them is the liminal dream space, hypnagogia, hypnopompia. It's the shortest one and the most chaotic one, because there are 6 brain waves all firing at once. Usually there's 1, in theta there's 2. So everybody goes through this naturally. Everybody is really familiar with the state. And all I really have to do is help people recognize it or go into this space. And so with my exercises, so when I do classes or workshops or whatever sessions, I use Yoga Nidra methods and kind of bring people into that space, that wonderful space that you get into in Yoga Nidra, which I think actually is a liminal dream space. And then once there, I have a lot of different exercises for realizing that you're in the liminal dream space, kind of looking around, noticing it, realizing where you are, and then resting in it. And there's a lot of wonderful work people can do. I sometimes lead people in some of that work where I just leave them to go into these experiences on their own.
And so in some ways, what I'm hearing is that Yoga Nidra is a useful way to practice for being in this state. Is that true to say, would you?
Oh, absolutely. And it's actually the most, it will get people there. I mean, it's the most successful method of bringing people into a hypnagogic state. that I have experienced, you know. And so, you know, I have some Yoga Nidra recordings on my website, and I do these when I'm live. And people, I mean, and my ideal is that people learn. I mean, most people recognize it. They recognize the space once they're in it. They're like, oh, this, you know, I knew, I just never knew it was a thing, or it never occurred to me, you know, or that kind of thing. So, so a lot of people will continue using the Nidras. I often send them to the Yoga Nidra Network, in fact, to look around and find whatever Nidras work for them. And for a lot of people, that's great, because a lot of people really want these exercises and ways to find the space. But, you know, as I know, you know, once you've found the space, there's all sorts of different, you know, ways to go into it, and your own practices. But definitely the Nidra is the most successful route.
Thank you. One of the questions I wanted to ask, people who have like lost their dream, people who are all kinds of, actually some of these techniques was enabling people to recover their dreaming again. And that sounded very healing. If you could speak about that.
Yeah, incredibly healing. And actually probably the most wonderful thing anybody ever said to me about this work I do was I had a man approach me at a festival, and he'd been to my workshop the year before, and then had gone and read some of my things, and he said he had an injury, like from a car accident, and so he used cannabis as medicine for this injury, but it meant he didn't dream anymore. And he said that even though it was going to bring him into pain, he had thought, well, I'm going to stop with the cannabis because my dream life is so important. And then he took my workshop and read my work, and he said, well, you gave me my dreams back. And so that was really wonderful. And a lot of people don't dream if they have really fast circadian rhythms. So a lot of people just wake up in the morning, you know, and they jump right out of bed, they're wide awake. And for people like that, it's actually can be quite difficult to go into dream realms, or at least to you know, recognize that you've been there. A lot of people are waking up to alarms. A lot of people have, you know, cats and kids and dogs. And so the thing with liminal dream practice is you can do it any time, you know, 20-minute nap, you know, or, you know, go listen to a Nidra and, you know, go into the space. And, you know, if you're doing it with the intention of finding the dream space, and you can go and you can learn to dream this way. And, you know, I mean, initially it's very quick, but I mean, I can spend hours in there, and I do.
So to give people their dreams back seems a very vital thing to be able to do now, because so many people are adrift. We live in strange times. And to me, the dream life and the capacity to dream another way to be, to invite in all sorts of creative connections is valuable. I wondered if you might speak about the connection between Yoga Nidra and liminal dreaming and maybe creative inspiration, because I know you're a writer, and maybe you've been posting a dream a day on Twitter forever. So
11 years now.
11 years of daily dreaming. So would you like to speak about that interface? Because to me, that's where you know, the creativity is really vital.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I talk about a lot, is using these spaces for creativity, because you know, when you have being able to be in dream space, being able to be in dream space and have your conscious mind aware enough to note what's happening does a lot of things. So, okay, for example, in the liminal dream space, your day ego, the one that's often driving the ship. Oh, I have to buy tomatoes. I really need to call my mother. Oh, I really need to write this piece. Oh, blah, blah, blah. What am I thinking about this piece? That kind of goes to sleep. And, you know, the sort of the visionary space of the dream really opens up. And so you're still like thinking, you're still, you know, having experience, but in a totally different way. You know, I mean, you have access to your unconscious, you have access to like all, you know, one of the things that characterizes liminal dreams is they tend to be kind of non-narrative. They get narrative as you get deeper in, but a lot of times it's kind of a swirling kaleidoscope of like the images and thoughts and memories and associations that are inside your experience. So you're having this amazing kaleidoscopic swirl through your own unconscious with your daytime ego sort of taken out of the picture, but enough consciousness to bring it back. So it's a super visionary experience. Actually, you know, that, you know, Jung's active imagination is exactly that, right? In the active imagination process, what you're doing, what, you know, is going into hypnagogia and then coming out and engaging it creatively, right? So painting or dancing or, you know, working with clay, I bead shoes, you know, whatever it is. And he felt like like the creative engagement of the unconscious was enough to cure, you know, any kind of, you know, psychic trauma or grief or difficulty or whatever. So I mean, it's amazing for the space of creativity, both because of what you see and because of how you think.
Yeah, I mean, and that really to me is a very, it's of enormous value. We've just, I mean, I'm here in we've just literally finished 3 days of creativity in Yoga Nidra where we were using art therapy. So we were working, and I was working with writing. So people were both writing, not and sharing and speaking, but they were making art. And it was extraordinary to watch over the 3 days. We would do Yoga Nidra and then do the art. And, you know, the research that's been done was showing how valuable it was to engage that active imagination process, but to do the Yoga Nidra first. That was the work of Dahi Ohini, who's been working here with me. So his master's in art therapy was all about that. So we were exploring it. So one question that comes up is, because I know you were recently on the big Lucid Dream Summit with the estimable Charlie Morley and a team of incredible dreamers. So what's the difference and the similarity between liminal dreaming and lucid dreaming? Because like to a layperson, when I hear you say things like, oh, you know, your conscious mind is engaged and you're dreaming, that sounds quite a lot like lucidity and dream. So is it the same or is it different?
It isn't, no. But there's definitely a continuum. So lucid dreaming, liminal dreams happen on the edges of sleep, right? So the space between awake and asleep. Lucid dreams happen during the night when you're in REM, so you're fully asleep. In lucid dreaming, really your what characterizes it is sort of a certain degree of like control of the dream, or basically your daytime waking self becomes aware in the dream. And in liminal dreams, your daytime waking self actually, I mean, even though you have some of the waking consciousness, it's not the same. It's not like this same me engaging. Lucid dreaming is actually difficult. I mean, some people are natural lucid dreamers, and many people have some natural lucid dreams. But to do it regularly, it's, you know, it's a practice. You have to really work at it. Whereas liminal dreaming is actually quite easy. As I say, we all naturally sort of do it every day. And with liminal dreams, it's very hard to control them because they're so fast moving and so dispersed, and because you're not in that part of your mind, you know, you're in this much more kind of yin, you know, dark, and so you're going to have a hard time controlling, you know, very far your liminal dreams. So they are different. Although the most traditional lucid, well, that's a silly thing to say, but one traditional lucid dream a community is Tibetan Buddhism. Like Tibetan Buddhists have this dream yoga, and for if you've ever read any of the, and I'm sure you have, these dream yoga texts, one of the things they say is like the first thing they want you to do is develop facility with liminal dreaming. And then that helps you learn lucid dreaming. And in fact, there are a lot of exercises, some of them in my book and on my website, where you can go right from hypnagogia or hypnopompia into a lucid dream. Like it serves as a bridge. So there's a continuum between them, but they are different.
Thank you. That is so clear. That's helpful. And where would you put on that continuum? Where does Yoga Nidra sit? Is like Yoga Nidra practice for liminal dreaming, and liminal dreaming, it could be seen as a way to practice for lucid dreaming, and that, but they're all of value, because in the Tibetan dream stuff that I've studied, there's a sense that eventually you're not even just lucid in dream, but you're lucid in sleep. That the ultimate kind of thing is actually not to be, but to be conscious of sleep herself. But I'd like to see where does Nidra sit on the continuum of these?
So I usually, I mean, and that's actually a really good question, and a thing I talk about a lot. I often will, use, for me, I mean, and I know there's a lot of different ways that people work with Nidra, which is one of the most beautiful things about it as a gift, as a practice. But for me, the Nidra goes into the liminal dream as a continuum, and the liminal dream can go into the lucid dream as a continuum. And I also I usually put imagination in there as well, because a lot of the first thing that happens as people's minds and experience starts to loosen a little bit. So, we all know that experience. You're in a Nidra and you're like, okay, I'm listening to the voice. I hear what she's saying. I'm like, that's, yeah, okay, now everything is starting to sort of loosen or, settle and open. I mean, it's I use a lot of words to try to express it, because it's difficult to express. But often the first thing that happens is imagination opens. Maybe there's an image or a sound. A lot of people are very aural. Maybe they hear sound, or they have a memory, or something kind of starts, and the imagination kind of starts to really bubble up in the process as you sort of fall into the space of the liminal dream. So I'm often like the Nidra kind of into, this imaginative loosening into the liminal dream space. And then, the lucid dream space. And then you're right, ultimately, where you're lucid all the time, where, the mind is, even when you're sleeping, or like people who say they've not lost consciousness for, decades or years. Or...
So then there's kind of lucid living, which is a whole other thing. And quite frankly, I feel sometimes in these retreats, that people dive deep in and out of Nidra, they're working, they get an opportunity to really work on this welcoming of lucidity and clarity. At all times. So there was one last thing I wanted to ask, which you mentioned, and I was glad you said it. You started to say, when you're in that state, the liminal dream state is very yin, like it's very dark, and you can't control it. And I have a particular interest in Nidra Shakti as like a real goddess, like not a state of consciousness, but like a real goddess with agency, like it's her. And an awful lot of the research I've done around understanding the power of sleep and dream, it sets up a very, not speaking about women, I'm speaking about deep feminine, which exists in persons of all genders, however we identify. But this quality of the deep feminine, of the Shakti, like in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Dakinis of sleep, and in the Hindu Tantra that I've been looking at, there's Nidra Shakti Devi, who's a goddess who appears with amazing powers. Part of the work with the encyclopedia is to kind of reinstate our respect for these very deep feminine yin energies. I don't know if you want to add anything into that, because you're inhabiting a female body, working in a world where a lot of the teachers that are offering quite a different, more yang kind of approach to dream work. And I wondered if you wanted to chip in on that.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm quite passionate about this because I think one of the reasons it's so important right now to be doing this kind of work, to be doing, the dream work, Nidra work, is, our culture's you know, yours and mine, and probably a lot of people watching this, certainly people who are, you know, living in Western countries a lot, you know, it's so, and really around the world, is so yang focused. We're all, you know, striving and success and moving forward and accomplishing things. And, you know, it's really all about that kind of outward yang. And I feel like there's this whole idea of going inward, the you know, the sort of the more yin aspect, the deep feminine, as you say, which is, you know, not necessarily about one's sex organs, is really something that's needed. And if you look at things like whatever, you know, things that are happening to, you know, climate and to, you know, nature, and, you know, so much of that, I think, comes from these, you know, really you know, yang movements, and I think it's very unbalanced, you know. And so the idea of giving people the ability to, you know, I mean, to go inward, and one of the, you know, during these strange days, you know, when one is not leaving the house so much, and, you know, and you know, things have sort of changed. I mean, for me, the real positive thing that I'm seeing here is that it really is the time to go inward. You know, it's the time to, you know, soften into these practices. And it's so important for creativity, for, you know, and everybody wants to be creative, for mental health, for, you know, your relationships with people, all of these things, to have a sort of more balanced approach to these energies. And I think these practices are, you know, one of the easiest ways to get there.
Great. So I think that's a really good place to encourage like a rebalancing and a healing and a creative visioning through entering easy. I mean, and that's what I like about you. It's an effortless thing. I mean, the big effort is actually, will you stop? You know, will you stop all the stuff? There isn't just the waking state. There's this whole other thing going on. And it's as if it's a submerged, hidden, or indeed kind of repressed aspect of being human that is now getting the opportunity to rise up. And they're so on that note, I'm going to kind of wind into the fact that many of the people who get to see this video are obviously kind of people involved in the Yoni Shakti, the movement campaign. And that's a movement not just to eradicate the abuse of women in yoga, but to reclaim yoga as a tool for healing and freedom and justice. And Yoga Nidra is a big part of this. So I'm really delighted to be able to share with people your work with the liminal dreaming and the lucid dreaming. And I'm wondering if you could just clarify now, if people wanted to access the exercises, the books,
so you can go to
this place to go find what you're doing.
Yeah, liminaldreaming.com, which is liminal is Liminal, liminaldreaming.com. And if you go there, there's I have a lot of exercises, some of my own like liminal dream specific nidras, so like, you know, nidra to bring you into the space, and then some of my own exercises to help you kind of recognize the liminal dream, and also just a bunch of other exercises from the book that people can see. So that's, you know, and if people go there and find that engaging, you know, then they can always just go find the book as well.
Okay. Buy the book as well. So yeah, so I'm delighted to wind up my interview with this esteemed Californian colleague. Say thank you so much for staying up late at night.
It is my pleasure, Emma, and thank you so much for being such a beacon for me.
Oh, bless you. I'm going to stop this recording now and wish you all the very best. Yeah, I do have to also say that the movement, Yoni Shakti, the movement is yonishaktithemovement.com, and that's where you find it. The Yoga Nidra Network .org is where there's like, I don't know, loads of free downloads.
I know, I send people there all the time. Yeah. I'm always sending people there because, you know, basically there's such a, you know, one of the things I love so much about it is there's such a wide variety of teachers, you know, and one of the things I tell people is like, look, go, you know, listen to a bunch of different ones, find what resonates for you, because different things resonate for different people. So there's a lot of wonderful free nidras, and there's a great variety. So I send people there a lot.
It's also not, it's available to everyone. Go do it, go listen and enjoy. I'm stopping this recording now. Here, there we go. It is stopped. the recording. There we go, we're done.